Right, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining our latest IT webinar focused on security and particularly end user protection and the benefits of security awareness training. So we're first of all joined by Charles Milton at Censornet, and I am Simon G from the EBS, the Business Development Manager. So before we kick off, just a few housekeeping things. First of all, if I can ask you to make sure you're on mute and your videos are turned off, as this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Also, in terms of time, I'm expecting this to be somewhere around 30 minutes duration. And also, just so you know, this is being recorded. And I'm sure as we go along, as much as the information that Charles is going to give us, you will have some questions. So if you can perhaps populate those in the chat, we'll either take them during the session, but we will have a question session right at the end as well. So I think the other thing I'd like you just to do is just remind yourself of what some of EBS's services are. Like I say, we're going to talk about security and end user protection here, but remember that we are an IT solution provider and also a Sage 200 business partner, but I'm sure you all know that. So without further ado, over to Charles.
Thank you, Simon. Good morning, everybody. Yes, my name's Charlie Milton. I run alliances for Censornet, and this morning we're going to be talking about security awareness training. I might use an acronym, SAT. It stands for Security Awareness Training. And as Simon said, this really is about the human element of cybersecurity. A lot of the services that EBS and Censornet provide are focused more on the technical side of things, but this is all about your employees and helping them to make your organization more secure and to engender a secure culture in your company across the board, regardless of whether that's people on the shop floor in a manufacturing environment or in the finance department. There is still a massive part for the human brain to play in keeping you secure, and this service is designed to really help with that. So in the next 30 minutes, what I thought I'd do is set a bit of the scene, talk about a few examples of human error, not to scare you, but really just to point out some different angles where humans can be compromised. I'm sure we're all familiar with them. I'm certainly always concerned, certainly about the older generation and some of the scams that they're seeing. I'm very concerned about my parents' generation, certainly, because I think they are vulnerable to these sorts of things. And then explain a bit about the good news and about what we're doing with EBS around security awareness training, show you a little bit of it, really with the aim that at the end of this, hopefully, you can have a think about your culture in your organization, and I would encourage you to think about that as we go through this. And then, hopefully, it will pique your interest, and then you can work with EBS to take a deeper look at the product, maybe get a demo, talk about how this can help you become compliant and help your businesses. So that's the agenda. What I'm going to do for a second is just stop my video, just so that my beautiful face is not distracting for you all. And then let's talk about where security awareness fits within the Censornet platform very briefly. I mentioned, if I can find where are we? Let me find a laser pointer. I mentioned that security awareness training focuses on the human element. Clearly, that is one part of the puzzle. It's part of Censornet's autonomous integrated platform that EBS run a lot of their cybersecurity services on. That includes really advanced cyber capability around email. So on the technical side, blocking, phishing, business email compromise, the way business email compromise starts, obviously malware. The same is true for web security. We're going to be running a webinar, I believe, with EBS in September around cloud applications and how to embrace those and mitigate the risk of the use of non-sanctioned cloud applications for your business. And then there's an identity element and an authentication element in the platform. But today we're talking about this module here. And really, I think it's clear that we are all subject to an onslaught of attacks to our businesses. Close to 40% of all businesses last year reported a breach or an attack, or indeed a near breach or a near attack, a near miss in their businesses. Generally, that's happening very, very regularly. I mean, weekly, certainly for a third of organizations, but everybody is subject to it. And a lot of these, 83% are phishing, amazingly. We all think about the protections we put in place for our networks, the basics of firewalls, etc. The reality is the attacks are designed to get to the user's inbox and ultimately trick the user into doing something. So all of you will be aware that this is a challenge. I imagine the majority of you are using a Microsoft suite of some sort for your capability. Phishing attacks, if I were a phisher, I would, part of my QA for a new phishing attack would be to ensure that it gets through Microsoft, given Microsoft's massive market domination in the email market with their Microsoft 365 suites. So regardless of what Microsoft does, the majority of businesses, the vast majority of businesses, are seeing significant number of phishing attacks being successful and getting through to the inbox. However, getting through to the inbox is one thing. The human actually interacting with those phishing emails is another. And so when you look at cybersecurity breaches as a whole, and then you actually look at, regardless of the delivery mechanism for that breach, or how the compromise has happened, what percentage of those have at least an element of human error in it? It's really significant. It's almost all of them. I mean, it's 95%. So really, the best thing that we can do as businesses, as leaders in our businesses, is to try and engender a culture of think cybersecurity across the business, and make sure that employees don't feel that they are on their own, or they're going to be made to look foolish by talking to their colleagues about about things that they feel are suspicious, and by raising the base level of awareness and talking openly about cybersecurity and making sure that colleagues are working together, we can make sure that we're not the slowest antelope in the herd as far as the malicious actors are concerned. One of the interesting things that happened during COVID lockdown was that people were sitting alone in their offices at home. Yes, they had Teams, etc., or Zoom to communicate with their peers. But if I saw a phishing email or something I thought might be a phishing email, it was much harder. There was more of a barrier for me to turn to Simon on my left and say, Simon, do you think this looks a bit suspect? We've got to get past that. We've got to make sure that people are talking to each other and understand that as a business, we're supporting them in querying things and making the right choices. And I think equally, even the most cyber savvy of us have been duped or nearly been duped. Some of the sophistication being used now is really good, and so we've got to get again past the point where we're talking to employees and saying, we can't make this a taboo subject. We've got to enable people to really think deeply about whether this really is a phishing email or whether it is a real email from Royal Mail. Are they expecting a parcel? We'll talk about some of the things that we train people on. But part of this is making sure that people question what they are doing. We are generally most vulnerable when we are not concentrating 100%. and the hackers know that, that you're very likely to fall foul to a phishing attack when you're sitting on your home on a Friday evening, or Wednesday evening, you're watching the football. You've maybe had a beer or a glass of wine or something softer, but you're not concentrating, and that's really important that we make sure people think about this 24/7. Anything suspect that they look out for. So just in terms of human error examples, we talked about phishing. Phishing results in, this is a well-known household electronics brand. I'm not naming and shaming them today, but what are the phishers after? Well, in this case, they're after sensitive data. If you're an electronics brand, for example, they might be after designs, patented information, that sort of thing. But in this case, they're actually after personally identifiable information, including salaries, bonuses, that sort of thing, and also confidential information with regard to a program that they were looking at. The phishing was the start of an attack that caused a cleanup operation that cost them close to $100 million. So massive problem. Started with phishing. It started with a user error. The user error was that they engaged with the phish. The ultimate upshot of that was a significant cost. But equally, it's not just phishing. It can be lack of care. Making sure that you are acting securely when you're at home, you're working from home, when you're sending emails externally, when you're attaching documents. In this example is a medical care company. It really isn't funny. They sent an email to over 750 people who had been recently diagnosed with HIV. Now, for a medical organization, obviously, there's a lot of personally identifiable information. Some of you will be rightly concerned about GDPR and the fines associated with that. But this is obviously a massive reputational issue for this company. It could have been avoided. It was human error. There were no technical capabilities in their infrastructure that let them down. It was entirely user error. But very, very damaging for a medical company, obviously, to leak such sensitive information. And then the other example is one of business email compromise. I think we've all heard of these, where starting with phishing attacks or pretending to be a C-level person in a hurry, often asking for the accounts department to very quickly pay a bill to a new bank account. This is one of the largest ones that we've seen. This was a massive payment. They managed to retrieve about 8 million of this payment, but they lost 38 million. And it was a combination of human error, but also starting with a phish that led to an account takeover being done, and then a very sophisticated attack. But what we're talking about today is how do we try and reduce the human error in the process so that we use human capability to augment our technical controls.
Just to come in on that, I think you've obviously talked about large organizations that have been affected, and I think I've certainly been in conversations where that can often be, well, why would they be interested in us? And I guess I can speak of real situations where companies that none of us would potentially have heard of, they're not large organizations, and they have also succumbed to this as well, because ultimately there's a numbers game out there, and it may be that they're not going to get the big 1 million payout, but they would happily take £110,000 payouts, which will affect your business as well.
Well, yeah. I have a personal example of a local a guy in my village who's a plumber, and his business was subjected to a based on a phishing attack. Actually, he lost £10,000. Now, for him as a plumber, that is a nearly catastrophic loss of money. And so, obviously we use large examples as a way to hammer a point home, but there are millions of examples of £5,000, £10,000 or more going missing, and it is a numbers game, and no vertical or size of organization or indeed individual is exempt to this. They'll try anybody, and you know, it isn't vertical or size of organization specific, and £10,000 to a small organization is as damaging as, you know, 30 million to a massive organization. It has a huge effect. What we are seeing actually as well, and it's a good point, Simon, is you know, cybersecurity insurance companies beginning to ask about how you are training your employees, and you know, really what they're trying to do is mitigate their risk. They're saying, we will insure you, but only if you've taken these steps. And security awareness training is a relatively easy one for them to mandate versus the complexity or variation in technical controls. But what they're looking for there then is a security compliant culture, and we do that, you know, through you get that compliance through building a culture, shaping a behavior, encouraging information sharing amongst employees, and therefore lowering your risk. And so what we're seeing is, you know, obviously lots of businesses, small, medium, large, are concerned around fines for data loss through GDPR. Again, not sector, vertical or size specific. There's some good examples of small organizations getting GDPR fines as well as massive ones like Google. But you know, we're in a market here where the hackers don't care what size you are or what vertical you're in. They're playing a numbers game to try and get data and or money, and one sometimes equals the other. So what we've done is try and build a process to reduce risk, and it has really 4 elements to it. You know, the first thing to do in any scenario like this is to try and identify, and again, without naming or shaming, the employees that are your highest risk. That is not to name and shame them, that is so that they can be supported. This is done through phishing simulations, and I'll show you an example of those later. The next thing then to do is educate employees. And we always hear people say, do you know what, I'm in the IT department, I don't need to be educated. In fact, you often find that it's the IT department who for the first couple of courses fail them because they do them without concentrating. But educate in a way that is not intrusive to their, and doesn't stop them doing their work, doesn't require massive amounts of time, but is really effective. And we've built that. We can talk a little bit about more about that in a minute. Then report on that. So report on the identification, identify the people who are who need extra help, report on who's passed a course, who's failed a course, how many times they took the course, whether there are any areas of the business that need specific help, you know, particular departments or geographies, and then repeat that, you know, regularly over a long period of time, so that it becomes part of the culture of the business to be secure. So that is our process. We really do that through building a plan with you as a customer. Now we have this concept of a journey, which I'll talk about in a minute. So we do this in a way that is non-onerous to you. However, it is always good to discuss your business. This is a business solution more than a technical solution. So plan the journey, make sure that journey is relevant to their business. For example, we have a standard Microsoft-based journey, which is probably what I'll talk about in a minute. But if you're a Google house, for example, you might want to use a Google journey, clearly, because it skews things slightly towards the Google fishes versus Microsoft fishes and capabilities. You want to integrate that with your employees so that when we look at the reporting later on, we know we're integrated with your identity. Generally, that's Azure AD, and therefore we know who is doing what and can focus on them. But it is designed to be really simple for you to deploy, get value from, and a lot of the value comes in working with a partner like EBS, looking at the reports and using those to then tune the way that the capability is working in your business, and make sure that you're looking at reports and identifying that, Sally in accounts really has fallen for every fish that we've sent her, and she's not doing very well in the courses. Maybe Sally needs some specific one-on-one help outside of this, or maybe Sally isn't the right person to be in the accounts department. But it allows you to really make some business decisions about how you can help your employees to become more aware. So I mentioned journeys. The idea here is to do this in a way that is non-onerous for you as a business, but also for the employee. And what we've done is we've built various journeys. This is an example of the phishing journey, so the identity piece of our solution. So every month we would send a fish and we'd stagger them, or we can shuffle them as well, clearly in the platform. That includes fishes like a Microsoft password reset, LinkedIn verification, Microsoft 365 file share notification. As you can see, this is a combination of Microsoft-focused fishes. There's a scattering of sort of more personal ones. Maybe a Just Eat voucher. You've just won a Just Eat voucher. Congratulations, Simon. Simon clicks on that, and then we would provide him with some training at that point, and then point out how he should have spotted that it wasn't actually from Just Eat. But then you can see, once we've set this up, it's not quite set and forget, because we would always encourage you to then look at the reports, but the journey runs throughout the period of a year, and gives a spectrum of the sorts of phishing attacks to identify the weaker people in your organization. And then we would intersperse that with a learning journey. And this is just an example of a learning journey, but short courses, British voice, and that's important. A lot of this content is American, I suppose. So it goes down really well in this market. But they're short 3-4 minute courses. They have games associated with them. For example, where is the password hygiene course has a game to shuffle passwords on cards into stacks and say this is secure, this isn't secure. But again, 2, 3, 4 minute courses, a game, a quiz. The quiz report is then logged into the report, and the user's given a score with a pass mark, and then they're given a grading as they go through, compared with their peers.
Charles, well done. You've already answered one of our questions we've had.
Okay.
And I think it's probably worth reiterating that, because I think I've had many conversations with people as well myself where these can be very Americanized, and that's fine, but this is UK based product. And I know I could witness for myself that obviously we use it internally. It is relevant and it is UK focused. I think that's a really important point to make.
Yeah, and also the length of the courses as well. I think we're what ultimately, it doesn't matter whether it's American or not, but it is great that it's British for the British market. What we're trying to do is make engaging content that people don't feel is onerous, and so having it in a British accent is fantastic, but short cartoons that are relatively fun, interspersed with video content, again, sort of YouTube style stuff, to make it engaging for the employee. And it's not a matter of, do you know what, I haven't done my cybersecurity awareness training for this month, I need to sit down for 2 hours and do it on a Friday afternoon. No, it's 5 minutes of my time. I pass, fail, retake the course if the company allows it, and move on. So we think regular short content is far more efficient at getting the point across than than detailed long courses that other content providers have. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Good. Okay, fine. So really, in the next 5 or 10 minutes, how long have we got left? Yeah, in the next 5 or 7 minutes, just a quick look at a few examples. So you know, for example, just want to show you a few phishing simulations. So you can see here, this is the Just Eat one that I was teasing Simon that he might have received. You know, clearly, you know, it looks like a Just Eat fish. Those of you that are in the know will see that the domain is just-eat-voucher.co.uk, so not Just Eat. And so there are lots of ways that a well-trained employee could click on these, but we make sure that we are you know, that they are spottable for a well-trained employee. But should a user click on them, we then take them to a page that takes them through you know, what they should have looked for. This is our standard splash page, the no need to panic page. This can be entirely customized for your business, but it also then talks them through with a hover over, you know, how to spot this. You know, were you expecting an email from Just Eat? Have you ever subscribed to Just Eat before? You know, do the links look genuine? Obviously, this would work in conjunction with other modules in our platform, like link scan and things, to make sure they are secure links. But looking for spelling errors, looking at the real domain, etc. So trying to raise that level of awareness for the employee. This is an example of a Microsoft one. This is actually a two-phase phish. So the employee clicks on the phish. They should spot that this is from Microsoft-notifications.co.uk, but they don't. They click on the recover account button, and it takes them to this page. Now, this page looks like a sign-in page for Microsoft, but if you're a well-trained employee, which you will be certainly after you've been subject to this simulation, you notice it's not got your Microsoft background in there, and so you put your email and password in here. Now, we obviously don't store that, but at that point, that's a real concern. This employee has not only fallen for the phish, they provided their username and password. We haven't stored it, but they are well on the way to exposing you to a business email compromise or account takeover attack. And so this is a real concern, and we can log both phases of that phish. So again, a Teams one, your OneDrive link will be deleted. You know, there's a whole suite of phishing simulations, and you can build your own. The other piece then is around education. You know, we can build little posters that you can put around the place. You often we've got a number of education customers, and I was visiting one of them the other day. In the gents, they had put you know, they'd put their own branded posters up in the gents on the wall, which is quite a nice touch. We can help with that, and we can brand these. So obviously, when I get a new course, the email can include, this is one of our reference customers. You know, the email telling me that I've got a new course is co-brandable as well. So then they run through all the courses. If you're interested in the courses, I think that's probably a good point at which to talk to EBS and ask for a little bit of a demo, and we can certainly help them and you set that up. The critical thing then is the reporting capability. The reports are very granular. They let you see who's engaged with what simulation, who's engaged with what course, who's passed, who's failed, and really focus your efforts for the future. And this is a cycle. You know, this is a cycle. The standard learning journey is a year. We've got a good number of customers that have been on the platform for well, since we've had the capability, which is now nearly 3 years. But it's a very engaging, simple to use but powerful way to raise the level of security in your organization. It is very quick to implement. unlike other capabilities, assuming we can get the Microsoft integration for identity working, which if we've got all the right bits in place should only take a matter of seconds. Getting a customer set up and on a journey is a cup of coffee's worth of time. It takes 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, I think just to jump in there, and that's where EBS come into play. So basically, we would liaise with Censornet to get everything integrated linked. So from an end user perspective, it's very, very straightforward, where you get involved in setting it all up so you can really kind of get the benefits of the service.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that EBS brings to the table here is, yes, it's very simple to set up and get value from, but it also requires continual engagement to make sure that it is easy to set and forget. What you don't want to do is forget about it. What you do want to do is review the reports, and EBS are very good at doing that with their customers to make sure customers are engaging with it sufficiently to make sure that none of the employees, no departments or particular employees, are falling by the wayside. So with that, I mean, I think that's probably it. I think that hopefully that's been a useful introduction. But anybody that really wants to talk to EBS about security awareness training, they would obviously welcome that. It is part of a broader capability, as I mentioned at the beginning, but this element I think is really exciting and is an area that a lot of businesses do not have covered with any existing capabilities today. So from me, I think that's everything.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. I've got a few points that I've kind of noted as part of that. So thank you very much, Charles. And there also is a couple of questions as well.
Okay.
I think just to re-emphasize that, I thought hard on 83% of attacks are phishing. I don't think that should be ignored. And it's growing, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's growing slowly, but there's not very far it can go from 83.
No, exactly.
And the thing for me that's surprising is it has stayed at that level for a long time, regardless of what Microsoft have been trying to do. Phishing is still the biggest source of the start of attacks, but most attacks now are multi-channel. They start with a phish, and then they try and compromise the account or take you to a web link or a cloud application, and that's why it's part of a platform for us. The human brain is still an important defense.
Yeah, this isn't about reducing what you have as hardware prevention. So you still should be having mail filtering and web filtering, which we can talk separately about. You should still be having firewall, etc. But that end user is still such a key point. So just wanted to re-emphasize that, really. One question I've got is, what happens after a period of time in terms of content? So I think this will probably be relating to
journeys.
So I guess probably to put my spin on that, I think it's a really key point about the solution, that if I was to go to a client, for example, and talk about some of the being aware of phishing attacks, it will sink in for a couple of months and everyone will be alert, and then old habits is what happens, and dare I say the term laziness. And obviously the benefit of this, it's a continuous thing, and that knowledge should be continuous and updated. I guess from a content point of view, and you will answer this better, Charles, in terms of repetition is one thing, but is it nice and fresh, I guess, is possibly
so there are some topics that you would want to repeat the same topic regularly through, certainly annually at least. And so our journeys are normally a year long. Towards the end of the year, we would create a new journey for the following year for customers. That might have courses with the same name. There might be a phishing course on there, but because you did a cartoon-based course last year, we might do a human course of human talking the following year, covering similar content. But the key is to keep it fresh and engaging. Now, every year we may bring in a new topic as well. We are introducing new topics as the threat evolves and updating. But yes, we are constantly creating content. We also have I talked about journeys, but we also have a function that we call on demand, where you know, if we have we've deployed Bob's Barbershop into a journey, and they're in month 6 of that journey, and then we bring out a new course, Bob can go in and go, do you know what, I'd like that course next month, and schedule that as an on-demand. So we're constantly creating new content. The key is to keep it fresh and interesting and engaging.
Perfect. And another question we've got, I like this one. What happens if a user fails training? I think you kind of showed what happens, but I think...
Yeah, you're not... Yeah, I'll give you the politically correct answer to what... Yeah, if they fail it once... yeah, so I think it was Sally and accounts who we were getting rid of, wasn't it? But no, so you have an option as a business to allow course retakes. Clearly, course retakes, if a user is failing, if a user fails the courses more than once or twice, there's a deeper problem there. That becomes, at some point, some of these issues become management problems. But from our perspective, we can allow course retakes or not, and we report on that and leave that to the manager to decide how to.
Yeah, I think that the solution gives the information, it gives the training, and it gives the business the data. I think is probably the best way. Whether you want to be carrot or stick is the business approach of it.
Entirely up to the business. Yeah.
And I guess just something I'm kind of wanted to again touch base on is I think you talked about how many business, we all have a moment where we're perhaps not concentrating or whatever, Friday afternoon, perhaps today we want to get home and watch the football or whatever it may be. I think this continuity keeps that focus really. I mean, I think certain businesses will almost see it as a competitive element where if they've been caught or not on this as much as anything, the other I guess so that continuity is important. I think the other thing is, do not think that I'm too intelligent to get caught. So I've again personally, finance directors, etc.,
it's not
heavily.
Yeah, you get people who are very intelligent, who have multiple master's degrees. They still get caught. I mean, I think so. Adjacent to that is what drives businesses to buy these services, and it's a combination of things for us now. Really, it's often we have a conversation. People go, we really need to do security awareness training. Oh, why is that? And they go, well, unfortunately, our CFO got caught last week by this, and now we realize that we've got to give everybody some training. That's one event, and that's unfortunate. The other, as I mentioned, is the cyber insurance, asking for it. I think Cyber Essentials Plus asks, to get that, you need to have awareness training programs in place. And then clearly GDPR as well is the other one, and supply chains. So we obviously respond to lots of RFPs, as do our partners from larger organizations. They all ask now, what do you do for your employees? How do you train them? And this is a very nice answer to put in an RFP, certainly. So
yeah, no, that's perfect. Okay, well, I think that's all of the questions I've got. So thanks very much, everyone. Thank you, Charles. I think that was a really good insight into security awareness training. This will be on our YouTube channel. There are various other webinars that we've also run about a mixture of security, SAGE, infrastructure elements. So please go on to those. Our next webinar is on the 23rd of July, which is actually on a CRM solution, Cycon CRM. And I think really just to kind of wrap up today is what we didn't want to give you is every single answer today, but hopefully an overview of what security awareness training is and the benefit of it. And if you kind of can reach out to ourselves at EBS, either if you got our details, or sales at ebs.tech, or on our phone number 0121 384 2513. And apart from that, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.